Number one, let's start with what happened yesterday, because she has gone viral, all right? She's gone viral over hot girls eat Arby's.
What happens when a single t-shirt outsells the jersey of the WNBA's biggest star? That's exactly what unfolded when Sophie Cunningham walked into a game wearing a shirt that read, "Hot girls eat Arby's." At first, it looked like nothing more than a playful fashion choice. But within 24 hours, it sparked an internet wildfire, selling 800,000 units nationwide and surpassing even Caitlin Clark's jersey sales. The league's Golden Girl had been dethroned in merch sales by a player they had just fined $5,000 for speaking her mind. Fans were stunned, brands were scrambling, and the WNBA was left watching a viral moment they had no control over. This isn't just about fast food or fashion. This is about how one act of rebellion flipped the script, exposed the league's double standards, and put Sophie Cunningham in the center of a cultural storm.
She was wearing this outfit, this arrangement, into the Chicago Sky game.
It all began on a night that was supposed to be just another hard-fought matchup in the WNBA season. The Indiana Fever were facing off against the Connecticut Sun, and the energy inside the arena was already crackling. The Fever needed the win. Tensions were high, and every possession mattered. Sophie Cunningham, known for her gritty style and relentless hustle, was locked in and ready to battle. But as the game unfolded, it quickly turned into something far more intense and far more personal. Midway through the action, Sophie took a brutal hit to the head. The contact was hard, obvious, and had fans in the stands holding their breath. Before she could fully recover, an opposing player reached out and yanked her by the neck. It was a moment that should have stopped the game cold, but instead, the referees kept their whistles silent. No foul, no review, no concern. For Sophie, this wasn't just about taking a hit. She'd played through contact before, that was part of the game. But this felt different. It was the blatant lack of accountability, the sense that her safety and dignity didn't matter enough for a call. That silence from the officials was louder than any whistle could have been. When the final buzzer sounded, most players might have cooled off in the locker room and chosen their words carefully for the post-game interview. Sophie took a different route. Frustration boiling over, she pulled out her phone, opened TikTok, and hit record. What came out wasn't polished or rehearsed, it was raw, unfiltered truth. She tore into the referees, calling them slow, useless, and blind. No safe language, just exactly how she felt in that moment. Within minutes, her video was everywhere. The clip started circulating faster than a fast break, reaching fans far beyond the WNBA's usual audience. By the time she woke up the next morning, it had racked up over 1.3 million views. The comments section was a battlefield, some applauding her honesty, others arguing about the way she'd said it, but almost everyone agreeing on one thing: she had the courage to say what many were thinking. For a league that often urges players to be professional and avoid public criticism, Sophie's rant was a jolt of electricity. It broke the usual mold. It wasn't the safe, PR-approved soundbite fans were used to hearing. It was real, and that realness resonated. The moment didn't just put Sophie on the trending page. It sparked a conversation about how the WNBA treats its players, about accountability for officials, and about what happens when an athlete refuses to stay quiet. What Sophie didn't know at the time was that this fiery outburst would set off a chain of events that no one, not the fans, not the league, and certainly not Sophie herself, could have predicted, and the next step in that chain would change everything. The viral storm from Sophie Cunningham's TikTok rant didn't take long to reach the league office. Within hours, clips of her calling out the referees were everywhere, plastered across sports blogs, reposted by influencers, dissected by fans. But instead of seeing the moment for what it was, an athlete demanding fairness and player protection, the WNBA decided to make an example out of her. A few days later, the league announced Sophie had been fined $5,000 for unsportsmanlike conduct. On paper, it sounded like a routine disciplinary action, but the public didn't see it that way. To them, it felt like silencing. It felt like the WNBA was punishing a player not for breaking rules, but for speaking an uncomfortable truth. The fine wasn't just money out of her pocket, it was a message. The league's stance was clear: criticize us publicly, and there will be consequences. For some players, that kind of warning might have been enough to step back, stay quiet, and focus on the next game. But Sophie isn't wired that way. If anything, the fine only fueled her resolve. She could have gone back online with another rant. She could have doubled down verbally and reignited the argument. Instead, she chose something far more strategic and far more devastating for the league's public image. Sophie decided to respond, not with another post, but with a statement she could wear. A message stitched into fabric that no one could scroll past without reacting. This wasn't about chasing controversy for the sake of it. Sophie understood something the WNBA didn't seem to grasp in the age of social media. Authenticity beats censorship every time. The more they tried to control the narrative, the more they handed her the spotlight. And she was about to step right into it. Her plan was subtle on the surface, but explosive in effect. She wouldn't announce it ahead of time, wouldn't tip off reporters or even her teammates. She would simply show up to the next game and let the cameras do the rest. It would be a silent rebellion, but one loud enough to echo far beyond the arena. That's the part the league didn't see coming. They thought a fine would end the conversation. Instead, it became the setup for one of the most talked about moments. In recent WNBA history, the day of the Knicks game, fans were already buzzing about her return. Would she make another statement? Would she ignore the drama altogether? When Sophie finally walked into the building, she wasn't wearing just a pregame outfit. She was carrying the next chapter of her story across her chest. And what happened? In the minutes that followed would flip the league's script entirely. When Sophie Cunningham stepped into the arena that night, there was no press conference, no carefully crafted statement, just a smirk, a walk filled with purpose, and a shirt that said it all, in bold, unapologetic letters across her chest. The message read, "Hot girls eat Arbys." No context, no explanation, just pure, chaotic confidence. Within seconds, cameras caught it. Photographers snapped the image, reporters whispered, and social media went into overdrive. Was this a sponsorship? Was it a joke? Was she trolling the league? Whatever it was, people couldn't stop talking about it. The photo hit Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok before she'd even finished her warm-up. And by the time the ball tipped, the internet had already crowned it a moment. The beauty of the shirt was in its randomness. It wasn't tied to a sneaker launch, a charity event, or any WNBA-approved campaign. It was entirely hers, her humor, her personality, her subtle jab at the system that had just tried to muzzle her. The timing was perfect. Only days earlier, she had been fined for speaking out. Now, she had found a way to speak louder without saying a single word. And then the sales started. At first, it was a trickle, fans posting selfies and knockoff versions of the shirt, tagging Sophie in their posts. But when Arbys themselves caught wind of it, the floodgates opened. The fast food chain jumped on the moment, reposting the picture and hailing Sophie as a queen of confidence. They didn't need to spend a dime on advertising. She had just given them the most viral promotion they'd had in years. Within 24 hours, the shirt sold out nationwide, all 50 states. Over 800,000 units gone in a single day. Online restocks crashed websites, lines formed outside select stores, and resellers began flipping the shirts for triple the price. It was a merch frenzy that the WNBA had never seen before, and the league didn't make a single cent from it. For Sophie, it was never about the money. It was about the message. You can try to find me, but you can't erase me. What she'd done was turn a punishment into power, flipping a moment of discipline into a marketing mess. Fans weren't just buying a shirt. They were buying into the rebellion, the humor, and the authenticity Sophie represented. Meanwhile, the WNBA found itself on the outside looking in, forced to watch as a player they'd just penalized became the center of the sports conversation. The shirt wasn't just clothing anymore. It was a cultural flashpoint, and it was about to push Sophie's fame to heights no one saw coming. Because next, her merch sales wouldn't just make headlines. They would rewrite the league's pecking order. For months, Caitlin Clark had been the undisputed queen of WNBA merchandise. Her rookie season had ignited a wave of fan support unlike anything the league had ever seen. Her jersey was a top seller not just in women's basketball, but across all sports. From kids wearing it to school to die-hard fans collecting every version, it seemed untouchable. That was until Sophie Cunningham's Arbys shirt detonated across the internet. At first, the league treated the shirt craze as a passing fad, a funny, viral moment that would fade in a week. But the numbers told a different story. While the shirt itself wasn't league merchandise, the hype around Sophie began bleeding into her official jersey sales. Fans who had never even considered buying her gear before suddenly wanted in. They weren't just purchasing a name and number, they were buying a piece of the personality behind it. Within days, her jersey sales began climbing the WNBA charts. By the end of the week, something unthinkable happened. Sophie's jersey had overtaken Caitlin Clark's in sales, the very player the league had built its marketing machine around was now trailing behind the woman they had just fined. The news spread quickly through sports media. Headlines questioned how a mid-tier name in terms of on-court fame had eclipsed the league's biggest star. Talk shows debated whether this was a one-off anomaly or the start of a shift in fan culture. Social media lit up with memes of Caitlin and Sophie, some playful, others suggesting a brewing rivalry for Sophie. This was never about outshining Caitlin. In fact, she'd been one of Clark's most visible defenders during controversial moments earlier in the season, but for fans, the symbolism was clear. They were rewarding authenticity. They were buying into someone who wasn't afraid to take risks, to speak up, to be more than just a jersey number on the court. Brands started paying attention to marketing executives, saw the data spike, and realized Sophie had something priceless. Cultural momentum. While Caitlin's fame came from being a once-in-a-generation basketball talent, Sophie's came from personality, relatability, and the ability to spark conversation. Together, they represented two very different ways to become a star in the WNBA. Inside the league offices, the mood wasn't nearly as celebratory. To them, this moment was complicated. On one hand, merch sales meant more eyes on the league. On the other, their most marketable player had just been overtaken by someone whose rise was fueled by defiance of league authority. It was a PR paradox, the kind that no rulebook could prepare them for. The message was clear. Fans wanted more than polished press conferences and corporate-approved. They wanted raw, unscripted moments that felt real. And Sophie Cunningham had just proven she could deliver them and sell them better than anyone else in the game. What happened next would only deepen her transformation from athlete to icon. Not long ago, Sophie Cunningham's name barely cracked headlines outside of dedicated WNBA circles. She was the type of player coaches trusted for her grit, her defense, and her willingness to do the dirty work, diving for loose balls, setting hard screens, and playing with a toughness that didn't always show up in the box score. Fans who followed her career knew she was dependable, but she wasn't the face of the league. She was the reliable role player who gave everything for the team. Even if the spotlight rarely found her, her journey began at the University of Missouri, where she became one of the school's most celebrated players, known for her sharpshooting and fierce competitive streak. She carved out a reputation as someone who thrived in high-pressure situations. That college success earned her the 13th overall pick in the 2019 WNBA draft. Landing with the Phoenix Mercury for 5 seasons, Sophie played her role with the Mercury, a mix of scoring bursts, defensive hustle, and veteran poise. She even took her game overseas, suiting up for the Melbourne Boomers in Australia, proving she could adapt to different playing styles and thrive in unfamiliar environments. Still, despite her skills and work ethic, she wasn't a household name. That began to change in 2025 when she joined the Indiana Fever. Her reputation as a fiercely loyal teammate and physical enforcer quickly took root. Fans started noticing her more, especially after her visible support of Caitlin Clark during heated matchups. She wasn't just another player in uniform, she was a protector, the one willing to stand up when others wouldn't. Then came the Connecticut Sun game, the no-call, the viral TikTok rant, and the now iconic Arbys shirt. That was the moment the spotlight finally swung her way and stayed there. Overnight, Sophie went from being a dependable role player to a cultural figure who resonated far beyond the basketball court. What set her apart wasn't just her talent, but her authenticity. Sophie didn't chase viral fame, It happened because she was unapologetically herself. Fans could sense she wasn't manufacturing moments for clout. The Arbys shirt, the clapbacks, the unfiltered rants, all came from a genuine place in a league where many players are cautious with their words and image. Sophie's openness felt refreshing, even rebellious, and the shift was undeniable. Her games drew more attention, her interviews were clipped and shared across social media, and her merch was flying off shelves. The woman who once blended quietly into a roster was now shaping the league's conversation. She wasn't just a player anymore, she was a personality, a brand, and a movement. For Sophie Cunningham, the transformation wasn't slow or subtle, it was an eruption, one that redefined her career, her public image, and her place in the WNBA. And with her newfound influence, she was about to attract allies and amplify her message in ways that would push her even further into the spotlight. The viral momentum Sophie Cunningham had built didn't just capture the attention of fans, it began to rally some powerful voices within the league. One of the first to step in was Angel Reese, a player known for her own unapologetic personality and fearlessness in speaking her mind. When Angel reposted Sophie's Arbys moment on social media with the caption, "They scared of real ones," it wasn't just an endorsement, it was a declaration of solidarity. That post hit like a shot of adrenaline to the conversation. Now, it wasn't only Sophie's supporters hyping her up, it was another major name in women's basketball validating her rebellion. Suddenly, the narrative wasn't just about a shirt or a fine. It was about the culture of the league and the way outspoken players were treated. Fans of Angel Reese, many of whom weren't regular Fever watchers, started paying attention to Sophie, digging into her story and amplifying her message even further. But Angel wasn't the only one. Current and former players quietly liked, shared, and commented on Sophie's posts, signaling their agreement without putting themselves directly in the line of fire. For some, Sophie was saying the things they'd been thinking for years but couldn't risk voicing themselves. Her boldness was freeing others to be bolder too. Then there was Caitlin Clark. While the media loved framing Sophie's jersey surge as a rivalry with Clark, the reality was much more layered. Sophie had been one of the most consistent players, defending Clark physically and verbally during her turbulent rookie seasons. The infamous June 17th game, where Sophie shoved J.C. Sheldon after the eye poke incident, had solidified her as Clark's enforcer. That kind of loyalty doesn't go unnoticed, and fans began pairing the two in a protector and prodigy narrative that gave both players added intrigue. The dynamic worked in Sophie's favor. While Clark drew headlines for her on-court performances in rookie stardom, Sophie drew attention for her fire personality and willingness to stand up when others looked away. Together, they gave the Indiana Fever one of the most marketable and compelling duos in the league. Social media only magnified the effect. Clips of Sophie and Caitlin interacting during games, high fives, celebrations, and sideline laughs circulated widely, often alongside footage of Sophie's most viral moments. This blending of fan bases fueled her momentum even further. As Clark supporters began buying Sophie's merch in a show of unity, allies like Angel Reese and the indirect support from Caitlin Clark turned Sophie from a one-woman rebellion into the face of a broader movement. It was no longer just her battle. It was becoming a league-wide statement about player freedom, personality, and authenticity. And with that kind of momentum behind her, Sophie was about to attract even bigger opportunities, ones that would take her brand beyond the basketball court and into a new realm entirely. By the time Sophie Cunningham's Arbys shirt had cemented itself as a cultural moment, the offers started pouring in. Brands that had never shown interest in WNBA players before were suddenly calling her agent, looking for a way to attach themselves to the energy she had created. This wasn't just about sponsorship, it was about tapping into a personality that had proven it could move merchandise and command online attention. Like few athletes in the league, the loudest buzz came from Arbys itself. What started as a playful nod on social media quickly escalated into serious business talks. Rumors swirled that the fast food chain was preparing a $2 million endorsement deal to make Sophie the face of a national campaign. For a player whose one-year contract with the Indiana Fever was worth $100,000, the numbers were staggering. And the best part, she had built this momentum entirely outside of the league's marketing machine. But Arbys wasn't the only one. Circling sportswear companies, lifestyle brands, and even beverage sponsors wanted in. They didn't just see an athlete, they saw a cultural influencer, someone who could bridge the gap between sports fans and a wider audience. In marketing terms, Sophie had something priceless: authenticity that couldn't be manufactured. Then came a surprise offer from an entirely different arena. Jeannie Buss, owner of the Los Angeles Lakers and head of Women of Wrestling, extended a personal invitation for Sophie to appear as the enforcer, a role that perfectly matched her public image. The offer wasn't about replacing basketball, but about expanding her brand into entertainment. Wrestling fans thrive on strong personalities, and Sophie's mix of toughness and charisma was tailor-made for that world. Sophie capitalized on the moment by launching her own line of 5K Fine Club merchandise, a direct reference to the fine the WNBA had hit her with. The gold chain design printed on hoodies, shirts, and hats became an instant hit with her growing fan base. It was cheeky, it was defiant, and it was hers. Every move Sophie made seemed to fuel the fire. The more the league tried to ignore or contain the situation, the bigger her presence became. She wasn't chasing opportunities, they were chasing her. And with each new endorsement, appearance, and merch drop, her influence grew beyond the boundaries of the court. In less than a month, Sophie had flipped a $5,000 fine into a multi-million-dollar moment. She had proven that personality could be just as marketable as pure athletic dominance, and in some cases, even more so. But while the business world celebrated her rise, the WNBA found itself facing an uncomfortable question. What happens when a player becomes bigger than the brand that's supposed to contain them? That question was about to hit them even harder, because Sophie's rise wasn't slowing down, and her next moves would force the league to make a choice it wasn't ready for. As Sophie Cunningham's star kept rising, the WNBA was left scrambling to figure out how to respond. On paper, a player drawing this much attention should have been a win for the league. More merchandise sales, more headlines, more fans. That's exactly what the WNBA has been trying to build for years. But Sophie's surge came with a twist the league wasn't ready for. Her fame wasn't coming from their carefully curated image of women's basketball. It was coming from a viral act of defiance that openly challenged their authority. Behind closed doors, league officials began floating the idea of banning branded apparel during pre-game media appearances. The move was framed as a uniformity measure, but insiders and fans alike knew what it really was: a way to prevent another Sophie-style merch storm that the league couldn't control or profit from. The problem was, banning the shirts wouldn't erase the moment. The internet had already immortalized it. Fans saw the potential ban as petty and short-sighted. Social media threads lit up with criticism, accusing the league of stifling personality in a sport that needs it to grow. This is exactly why people think the WNBA doesn't know how to market itself. One viral post read, "And that frustration resonated because Sophie had done what the league struggled to do: connect with a wider audience, make headlines outside of game recaps, and bring in casual viewers." Even more uncomfortable for the league was the fact that Sophie wasn't backing down. Instead of retreating, she doubled down with another viral image, sitting in the locker room, holding a burger in one hand and wearing a gold chain that read 5K Fine Club. It was a direct shot at the fine they had slapped on her, and it only made her more popular. Fans shared it like a badge of honor, turning her into a symbol of athlete independence. The situation exposed a deeper tension. For years, the WNBA had tried to position itself as a tightly controlled brand, careful about every image and statement associated with its players. But Sophie's rise proved that the market was hungry for the opposite: raw, unfiltered authenticity. Her popularity wasn't built in boardrooms or focus groups. It came from moments that felt real, unpredictable, and unapproved. This put the league in a bind. If they embraced Sophie's authenticity, they risked setting a precedent that other players might follow, potentially creating more moments they couldn't control. If they tried to rein her in, they risked alienating fans and reinforcing the perception that they silenced their most interesting personalities. Either way, the old playbook no longer worked. Sophie Cunningham had changed the rules. She wasn't just playing basketball anymore. She was leading a cultural shift that the WNBA could either adapt to or get left behind. And with every viral post, every sold-out shirt, and every headline. It became clearer. This wasn't just Sophie's moment. It was a warning shot to the entire league. Sophie Cunningham's journey from dependable role player to one of the most talked-about figures in women's basketball is a story the WNBA never saw coming. What began as a moment of frustration over a no-call evolved into a viral TikTok rant, a $5,000 fine, and the now iconic Hot Girls Eat Arby's shirt that sold 800,000 units in a single day. In the process, she not only surpassed Caitlin Clark in jersey sales, but also became a cultural force whose influence reached far beyond the hardwood. Her rise was fueled by authenticity, defiance, and a refusal to play by the unspoken rules of silence that hover over athletes. Fans didn't just buy her merch, they bought into her unapologetic personality and the message behind it. For the WNBA, the moment is both an opportunity and a challenge. Will they embrace this wave of player-driven authenticity, or will they tighten their grip and risk alienating the very audience they're trying to grow? One thing is certain, Sophie Cunningham has proven that in today's sports world, a player's voice can be just as powerful as their game, and once that voice is heard, it's not easily silenced.